What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Walkout Network. It's your man, Ant Walker, here with another edition of Unleash, the weekly panel discussion show. You guys know the routine, and we're going to follow through with it every time because we love these two guys so much. First up is the jack of all trades who has mastered them all. He is the senior editor of SureDog.com, also my good friend, Mr. Ben Duffy. Ben, what's going on?
Hey, I'm doing really well. Another weekend, another electrifying weekend of fights. I feel as though we're in a little mini, if not golden age, at least not an ice age of fights. So I'll take it, man. Plenty of good stuff to talk about.
Absolutely. And of course, every week the panel is anchored by the man with the stats, the facts, the figures, and the numbers. He is the associate editor of SureDog.com, who also happens to be my good friend, Mr. Jay Petrie. Jay, what's up, bro?
I'm glad I made your MySpace top 8 for this week. It was a tough battle, but here we are.
Every week, brother, every week.
And speaking of every week, the last 3 weeks of fight cards have just been. I am shocked. We go into fight cards and go, oh boy, here we go. You look at that. I mean, I think I might have said it myself. The Max Yair card was a boxing card. The one fight, and then whatever happens. I think I picked that the first 8 fights would all go the distance, and they didn't. I think only one of them did altogether, and that was the one fight you could skip. But this fight card, this past set of fights, man, I am relieved. Like, it has been a very long stretch. We're coming up to week 10 in a row of UFC cards every weekend, but it's still giving us something to talk about, something to get excited about. So obviously, I am most excited about something that many of you are also excited about. 3,000. More specifically, 3,056. That's Max Holloway's total strikes landed quantity as a UFC fighter. Total strikes, not significant. That's also a record. But Max Holloway has put up 3,000 strikes on his opponents over his UFC career, which is obviously a record that will continue to grow in his favor. He's about 500 up on the next closest fighter, who is GSP, who is not going to be gaining ground on that. Good Lord, Max Holloway.
I mean, it's possible Max Holloway passes that within the next 2 rounds of him fighting at the rate that he doles out offense.
He is over 1,000 significant strikes over the next guy, which is Frankie. 1,000 more than Frankie.
It's absolutely insane. The strike rate this guy puts on. And he's at a very, very odd place as far as the division is concerned. 2 down to Alexander Volkanovski. No matter how close you scored those fights, no matter how controversial those decisions were, he has 2 losses on his record from the champion. But he seems to be beating everyone else and beating them pretty decisively. What does the UFC do with him next?
I think they do Alex 3. Alex is calling for it. Dana White is calling for it. Like, I think it's going to happen, and that's fine if he's the most deserving guy. I think Alex Volkanovski wants it because he hears the noise about how Max really won the second fight. He wants to put a definitive stamp on this thing. But the problem for me is, well, what if Max wins? We get an immediate rematch, and what are these guys going to do? Best 3 of 5? Best 5 of 7? Just, is this going to be the World Series? Ooh, World Series of Fighting. That'd be a great name for a promotion. Anyway, I think we're getting Max versus Alex 3 coming up.
Jay, what say you?
Do you, as a fight fan, like, setting aside the media part of it, is that the fight that appeals to you the most of all the challengers for Volkanovski?
If you're asking me, yes, I would watch that every weekend. It's about as high level a mixed martial arts contest as we ever see, just in terms of the skill levels of the fighters, the preparation levels, just the layers of strategy that go into this, the way Volkanovski managed to stop the Holloway Express in a way that basically nobody at featherweight has, other than just nobody else at featherweight has. I mean, if you love mixed martial arts, this is what you're there for.
I think that has to be the answer, right, Ant? That it's just, you look at everybody else and you go, boy, oh boy, Max is number 1 and he's thrashed number 2, number 3, number 5. You have to go further down the list because the division changes so much. But you don't want to see Max next fight number 7 Josh Emmett, number 9 Dan Ige, You just don't. Why would you want to see that after doing what he did to number 3 Yair Rodriguez, number 5 Calvin Kattar? So I don't want it because the trilogy, it's not a rubber match, and that in itself is difficult. That you could sell the rubber match. He won one and he won the other. You can put them together for all the marbles. This is a guy who's 0-2, whether we agree or not. I had Max winning the second fight. I think when I scored it for Sure Dog, I had Max winning the second fight. But the risk of the reward doesn't seem that great because the options are Max is the champ again. Obviously, Duffy, you're right on the money. Volkanovski has 2 wins over Max. Volkanovski has a win streak that's 24 in a row, 20 how many in a row? 21 in a row. Anyway, a ridiculous long win streak and 2 wins over the guy who just beat him. So that means in Alexander Volkanovski's last 5 fights, he would fight Max Holloway 4 times. I don't know if it's the right answer because it feels funny that we'd have to go with that. And then if Volkanovski wins, Max is down 3-1 to the guy and will never get another shot until he gets 2 wins together. And apparently they call for another one. It's just, I would not be mad at the UFC's version of Arlovski Silva in that they'll make a 4th one and a 5th one and however darn many they need to make until they all explode. But it just feels so anticlimactic for the rest of the division for how great they are. Because then when you do with the other fighters that are waiting for Max and Volkanovski to fight 12 times, and then you look at Max and go, boy, he's won 2 fights in his last 5, but he's the champion now. So we're going to give him a tough. It just, on paper, it feels worse than it does saying it out loud. And I think maybe that's my issue. I don't know, Ant, if you think that this is just wild and it has to be the fight, but
I don't necessarily think it has to be the fight. It would be the best fight from a meritocracy standpoint, but since we've already seen it twice, since it will put the division in a very precarious place, no matter what the results are, I say we turn to some other faces. I think we're forgetting that Korean Zombie had a great win over Dan Ige in June. We're forgetting that Giga Chikadze is making waves in the division right now. Arnold Allen as well. So between those 3 names, you can pair Max Holloway up with one of them. You can give another the title shot, and someone's just kind of waiting in the wings. I think that might be the best place to go. Just if we're looking just off the rankings, Korean Zombie against Volkanovski sounds like a fun fight. May not be when you look at, like, I know his previous fight before the Ige fight was a loss, so that kind of throws a monkey wrench in the plans. But at this point, the division is already kind of screwed. You've got a whole lot of top talent. You've got a mix and match of people who have beaten each other and lost to one another. Whatever, lean into the chaos. Give me Korean Zombie versus Volkanovski for right now. Maybe Holloway takes on Arnold Allen, and Giga could be a backup for someone else, and we can keep the division pushing that way. Because I just don't think they should pull the trigger on that trilogy fight just yet. It seems like when you do that, it kind of sets off a nuclear bomb to the rest of the division for the foreseeable future. So let it breathe, even if that means kind of stepping away from the traditional, working your way up to a title shot.
Yeah, I mean, because otherwise you have to look outside the top 5 for contenders, because then you have obviously, champions Volkanovski. Max is 1, Ortega's 2, Ortega just lost. Yair's number 3, Yair just lost. Korean Zombie's up 4. He has 1 win over Ige, who's in the top 10, and he lost to Brian Ortega. And Calvin Kattar, he stepped in the cage against Max Holloway. I guess we'll give him that much credit that he appeared in UFC ABC 1, but then you have to leave the top 5. And if you're struggling to put those contenders together, is it the best choice? Because Giga's fighting Calvin Kattar at I think it's a January headliner. I think it might be. Yeah, isn't Giga the headliner of the first card next year?
It's like January 22nd.
Yes,
something like that.
I think it's right up there with one of the first cards of the year. So that isn't long, and then you can move from there. But yeah, I mean, I guess maybe it depends on when Volkanovski wants to fight again, because he just had that thing with Ortega, and his neck almost popped off like a Pez dispenser. So I don't know how long he needs to get his neck right or whatever's going on.
Yeah, and also like that whole camp moved to the U.S., so they might need a little time to kind of get settled.
Or you guys saw the weigh-ins and you listened to the pre-interview what he did with Megan O'Leary. Max didn't sound great. I mean, he never looks good at the weigh-ins because he's cutting so darn much weight. Is this the time for him to actually give 155 a shot? Remember, he went down to the wire with Poirier in his kind of short notice excursion up to 155. Maybe you slap him in there with Tony Ferguson to test him out to see what the top 10 looks like.
I don't know. I mean, we've tested him out at lightweight, and it wasn't a true test of him at lightweight. If he's going to go to lightweight, he's got to really commit to it. He's got to be a lightweight, and he's got to put on the appropriate muscle. He's got to diet appropriately. He's got to train appropriately. Just this version of Holloway that doesn't cut as much weight, it proved to be, insufficient for the upper echelon of that division. So if Max Holloway wants to go up to lightweight just to dick around and slap up a few people, so be it. And if that's a way to sort of buy time until that trilogy fight presents itself, so be it. But if he is going up to make a legitimate run at the division elite, then it has to be done properly. So I don't want him to do that just as a purgatory of sorts. He's got to commit to it. And thing is, we've had this conversation about Holloway for years now. So yeah, he looks terrible on the scale time in and time again. So I'm not too moved by it at this point. Maybe I'm desensitized as much as I preach about fighters cutting too much weight. I mean, we've seen it from him so much that it just doesn't move me anymore.
He looked like a skeleton against Cater and landed more strikes than anybody's ever done. I mean, by himself, let's keep in mind, by himself, he landed more strikes on Cater than he and Ortega did combined, which was the record at that time, after looking like Skeletor.
Yeah, and even all the complications he had heading into the Ortega fight and its different iterations on whatever cards. I mean, he put on another stellar record-breaking performance there. So, I think too, he in cage, he seems like he's got the nutrition aspect figured out a lot more, even if it looks like death on the scale. So I don't know. I hate encouraging fighters to keep cutting weight, but if you're going to go up to lightweight, you must commit, because as we've seen, the power is going to be too much. His chin ain't going to last forever to have these sort of wars like he did against Dustin Poirier. So I don't know. I'm not too fond of that idea unless it's a permanent one.
So I think what you're saying is he needs to go fight Jose Aldo at bantamweight. Is that what I'm getting from you?
Cut some more weight. Let's get it.
Ben? Yeah, Ben.
Yeah. What do you have to say? 155 Holloway, is that the next move?
I think that would be fine. I mean, I'm not ready to minimize his potential at 155 based on a competitive, relatively short notice fight with the best lightweight in the world. I think, I don't know if you guys agree, but I think in the post Khabib Nurmagomedov world, Dustin Poirier is the number one guy. And Holloway gave him as competitive a fight really as anybody else has that's still active. And clearly 155 even is still a problem for him, because the only reason he didn't fight Khabib back in 2018 is that he couldn't make 155 on a week's notice. Because he told us, like, I walk around at 191 pounds in shape. So I don't think he'd have to make that big a change in his actual training regimen. He would just have to actually commit to, I'm going to fight at 155 4 months from now and go. And probably his current body would be fine. I don't know if he'd be the best lightweight in the world or the second best like he is at featherweight, but I think he immediately slots in as a top 5 guy.
just in terms of numbers, I know obviously Poirier's were more powerful. You could tell the impact, but in terms of raw numbers, he did outstrike Dustin Poirier on short notice, up a division, kind of, that whole thing.
Yeah, but I think this is one of those fights where the stats don't really tell the true story.
Oh, I agree. But it's in terms of his ability to perform at that division, even on short notice.
I mean, it was certainly entertaining. Yeah. It was a fun fight to watch. It thrilled everyone. But how competitive was it really?
I think it was a 48-47 for me.
I
gave it to Poirier, but
my initial impression that it wasn't very competitive. It was fun to watch. Holloway proved himself as tough as hell, legit and durable, and all these other adjectives you give someone when they're getting their head pummeled in. The adjectives that are normally given to his opponents at featherweight. That's what Holloway proved himself to be in that fight, in my opinion. I think a redo with with a more focused camp at 155 might improve some results. It certainly might get him past other people in the division. Keep in mind, Dustin Poirier is like a world beater of world beaters, so there's some hope there. I'm just not ready to write him off at featherweight just yet.
Well, then I guess I need to ask this question to you guys. So Max won again. He's on a 2-fight win streak, 2 fight of the nights, but he's taken a lot of damage. He's taken, I think Yair hit him like 160 times. And, Cater, obviously Cater landed back, but I think Cater may have broken his own record, even though he was just punching back as fists were in his mouth. But, Max is taking damage, and people thought he was going to blow by him, and Max was a huge favorite coming to that fight. Did his stock really go up, or was it more Yair's that was the one who really shined after this fight? I don't know, Ben, what do you think?
Yair, easily. Max Holloway, just, to quote a famous football coach, he is who we thought he was. He just reaffirmed that he's at least the number 2 guy in the division, whereas Rodriguez had a lot more to prove. He's coming back from 2 years away. All the doubts had festered in the meantime. Oh, Yair doesn't really want to fight. He's always going to be injured. He was never that good. All of which are false narratives, in my opinion. But he came back with a lot to prove. He came back as one of the bigger underdogs in recent UFC memory in a non-title, non-short notice fight, like i.e. where the promotion actually had carte blanche to match up who they wanted. One of the, and there's like a plus 550 underdog. Yeah. He had a ton to prove, and he proved it. I said going in that it's a big ask for him to beat Max Holloway coming in off 2 years off. But if he can just come out and give the kind of performance that reminds fans why the UFC was so heavily invested in him, why he was like on his way to being such an action hero and a contender at the same time, just that kind of performance, even in defeat, would be a win of such sorts for him. And I thought he did so.
Yeah, I agree with Ben. I mean, Yair certainly benefited more from at least people's impressions of the fighters in the fight. I mean, I'll put it this way: like my wife and I were watching the fight, and ahead of it, I'm echoing the sentiments that I said on here last week. Like, Max is going to set new strike records. This is going to be a bloodbath. He is going to go out there and wash this man. And about halfway through the second round, my wife's like, no, that's not what's going on. I don't think you got this one right. And when it was over with, she's like, wow, that was a pretty close fight. That is the last thing that I think a lot of us expected. I remember seeing the meme of Megan Anderson when she's entering the Apex Center to fight Amanda Nunes, and like the look of like impending doom that she has in her face, and like this is Yair walking walking into the cage. Like, that's not exactly what we saw. We saw Yair stand up and do what he does best. It just wasn't good enough against perhaps the best featherweight in the world. So I'm high on Yair after this one, and I was already super high on Max. So Yair gets the benefit in this one.
Yeah, it has to be a y'all must have forgot kind of moment. Like, just because he was gone for so long, and there was the drama, and I think, Ben, you touched on the preview show for Sherdog, that, the narrative that Yair doesn't want to fight was something that fans had kind of co-opted. And
because
that breaks
Dana
my
cannot
heart.
shut the fuck up.
It breaks my heart that a fight promoter would say the top 5 guy in the organization who fought, I mean, he hasn't fought all of the top names in the division, but several really great ones, and come out on top, and many of them doesn't want to fight. Just what are we doing here? And I think that this was that important reminder that he's here, he's whatever, he's able to make his waves in the division, and hold up against Max Holloway. It's almost the Max going up to lightweight to fight Dustin Poirier to say, I can hang here. This was kind of that emphatic, I can do this. You thought I was going to get wiped out. I thought Max was going to finish him probably in the 3rd round by the accumulation of strikes. Now, granted, Max did set striking records. He landed 230 significant strikes, which is, I think, the 3rd most ever. And or something, maybe it's in the top 5. But he has 3 of the 5 top striking records ever. And Yair was able to give it back like that. I think, Yair is firmly entrenched himself as a legit top 5 guy in the division, with exciting matchups on the table for him, because there's a lot of guys he hasn't fought. And we don't need to see the Korean Zombie fight again, but he's got a lot of names. I want to see him fight Brian Ortega next, because they're both coming off losses to those guys. Action fight, top 5, wheat from chaff kind of thing like that. But if you look at that, remember how we always talk about how the UFC can match up basically anybody in the top 5 of light, or top 10 of lightweight, and we'll go, yeah. Anybody in the top 10 of featherweight, and we go, yeah. Yair entered that pool as an immediate, who doesn't want to see him fight Giga Chikadze? Oh my God, Edson Barboza gets a win. Wouldn't that be awesome? It's the sky is not the limit. Here's the ceiling, but this is a good ceiling to be at.
Yeah, I say give him the loser of Cater and Chikaze.
Sure.
Because either way, we're playing with house money at that point, and the winner of that fight could go on to do whatever they want in the division. So I'm all on board for that, because the sort of performance that Yair put on, especially when you consider the layoff, and especially when you consider how much fans love watching this man perform and what he's able to pull off in that cage. Like, this loss shouldn't really harm him trying to get a title shot. Obviously, I'm not saying he should get the next title shot off of a loss, but one win, and I'm okay with him stepping in there for the belt, depending on who's holding it. So, Yair definitely proved himself to be high caliber featherweight on Saturday, despite the loss. Fellas, I want to move on here to our swing or miss portion, but I'd like to take the first at bat for this one. The swing or miss is Herb Dean is no longer the best in the business when it comes to referees. I'm going to miss hard on this one. Like, I'm missing this one because saying that Herb Dean is no longer the best in the business is implying that Herb Dean was the best in the business in the recent past. We have been having the Herb Dean decline conversation for quite some time. And I'm playing a game of semantics here. Just the phrasing of this means that at some point very recently we considered him the best in the business. That has not been the case for at least like 5 years now.
I'm glad you picked up on that. Thank you. I feel better now.
I see what you did there. So Jay, swing or miss. What's up? Herb Dean, best in the business.
Man, this is a harder question for me, because I, as a member of the fight record community, I know how many referees are involved and how many fights they have to cover and everything like that, to a ludicrous degree. And you think of all the reps that these referees get, and they can have 10, 15, 50, 100 great finishes, stoppages, whatever, but they have a bad one and they're now a pariah. And so we look at that and go, oh my God, it's something. But then you have to look at the fact that this seems to be happening at a non-anecdotally increased rate. Like, you look at this and go, wow, we really are having this discussion about this particular referee. Like, we ripped on Chris Taglioni for a couple bad stoppages a couple months ago. Here and there we talk about, oh my God, Vyacheslav Kiselev, I think, was the referee in Abu Dhabi and had that, well, what he didn't stop and that whole nightmare of a situation that he got booted from. But Herb Dean's name comes up an awful lot about, oh boy, what's going on here? And I'm not of the mind that he's a bad ref. He's messing up. He's whatever. I am of the mind that I believe at least one of you will agree that there's something in his confidence when it comes to taking action, that he is second guessing himself to a level that's problematic. I understand the decision to stop a fight, to intervene, to get in there is a really difficult and very nuanced one. But if you're going to take action, you have to take action. And you have to make sure if you're going to stop the fight, you can't half-heartedly stop the fight, especially with heavyweight knockout artists. Like, this is something you can kind of go into. And unfortunately, it wasn't the only stoppage of this fight card for Herb Dean that was a little odd. The Song Yadong Julia Arce, when Yadong kicked him in the head and hurt him and was finishing off with punches. Herb Dean tripped and tried to get his way in there to stop the fight, missed, and had to gather himself to stop the fight. I even wrote that up in the Sherdog play-by-play. So that was kind of a little, ooh, oh boy. And then the Ben Rothwell stoppage. Now, I'm not going to say that Rothwell could have survived and gotten through it. But sometimes, do you have to adopt an if he dies policy? I don't know. But you have to at least pick a side. And I think that's the problem that we're facing now. So, long way around. I don't think he's the best in the business. But I don't think it's because he's a bad ref or because he's whatever people mean things people want to say about him. It's the ability to make the choice in that moment and act all the way through. That he's struggling. It's the execution of it. Where somebody like Mike Beltran, if Mike Beltran's getting in there to stop a fight, this fight's over. If Jason Herzog is in there with heavyweights, Jason Herzog isn't a huge guy. He will get in the middle of the heavyweights and do what he'll do the Dave Scholler push them apart thing if he has to. And Herb Dean doesn't have that right now, and it's really too bad to see.
I mean, but does it matter why he's not one of the best? It's just because, like, that hesitation, whatever the case may be, whether it be a psychological thing or, I mean, I will forgive him like tripping on the way for the earlier stoppage. Like that's just going to happen. You can trip on yourself, as long as it doesn't happen all the time, like whatever. But if you are consistently not being the best, the loss of brain cells, the damage done to careers, the people not getting their win bonus because the call was wrong or whatever the case may be, all these negative consequences, it just doesn't matter why it happened. Is the fact that it keeps happening and happening and happening and happening. I don't understand why he's still getting the top assignments at this point, because we can almost guarantee there will be some controversy with him in a high level fight right now.
Yeah, I mean, he's easily the most experienced and recognizable active ref in the business, to the point that overseas promotions bring him in to kind of lend credibility to their organizations. Like you look at his assignment sheets, that guy is in Russia and China every month with just some like shithouse promotion bringing him in because they're like, hey, we got Herb Dean. We will get your record in a Sherdog. Look.
And he will sometimes get more applause than the fighters competing. Carry on.
Oh, yeah. Kind of like, like the fighters are more excited to see Joe Rogan than he is to see them in the cage afterwards. And I agree to a certain extent that it doesn't matter why, but it is weird that like literally the most experienced ref in the world is all of a sudden like making like rookie mistakes. The Rothwell stoppage was unconscionable. If you're the ref, you dive in and you put your hands on both fighters, that fight is over. And like Marcos Pezao should not have to be looking up at you and being like, why am I still punching this guy? You stopped this fight, which is exactly what he had to do. He like literally looked up and said, you already stopped this. Just to like kind of bring him like snap out of it, Herb. But I'm with Ant on this. It shouldn't matter why. Maybe he needs some time off, but he's not going to get it because he's one of the few people that really can do this without repercussion. Dana's mad at him like on a monthly basis at this point, and he is still getting worldwide assignments. He's still one of the busiest refs in the world. Like, it's just going to keep happening.
I mean, to completely contradict myself of saying like the why doesn't matter. Like, maybe it's burnout. Like, if you are flying overseas, multiple times in a month, and you're at the Apex Center, you're everywhere that the sport is, maybe you're doing this a bit too much.
So the new headline on Twitter will be high-level MMA fan Ant Walker calls for Herb Dean to be Bellator color commentator.
Might be a stark improvement. I would say this though. I and forgive me for not remembering the exact name of the condition I'm looking for, but it's like a nervous system thing. It's like if it's like the medical equivalent of burnout, or the medical term for burnout, where you can do something so much that it literally just like fries your nervous system to where it's hard to perform that task properly. And the only way to stop it is just taking a break, just sitting your behind down for week, month, whatever the case may be, and then repicking it up later. I can definitely remember feeling overtrained back when I thought I was like, some martial artist guy. And just all of a sudden coming into training and just looking terrible, and just like kicks having no snap. I'm dropping my hands when I punch, chin up in the air, just all the rookie mistakes. And I was somebody who should have known better. I was burnt out. I took a week or two off, and I came back to the gym sharp, and came back performing at my best at the time. I think everyone needs to take a step back. If you're working too hard, take a step back, because this is the result. It's just that with Herb Dean, it's not like this is this is a plumber who didn't screw in a lug nut too tight, or this is this is a waiter who got the order wrong. This is someone who's responsible for the health and safety of people who are performing an inherently ridiculously dangerous job. Therefore, you need to be on point, and this is very serious. So I say might be burned out. Take a step down for a second there, Herb. So let's keep things pushing here. Shallow cuts. This is where we will have 30 seconds to answer a question. Allow me to get the clock right here. But I will go ahead and assign some questions for you, gentlemen. Ben, I'm going to start with you. 2 wins in a row, including one over the champ's sister. Is Andrea Lee a win away from a shot against Valentina Shevchenko? 30 seconds begins now.
She very well might be. In that division, it almost doesn't matter who's next, but it's nice if it's a fresh face. If she can win 3 in a row, and she hasn't been through the wood chipper of Valentina yet, she's going to be like, the UFC would like Andrea Lee to do well, at least for values of well that include getting beat up by Valentina Shevchenko. So yes.
All right. Few seconds to spare. Just excellent clock management, Ben, as always. Very, very impressed. Jay, you're up next. Let's see. How about let me know what your biggest takeaway from Bellator 271 was.
It happened and we let it happen. No, it's hard to feel good about a Bellator fight card when when the biggest betting favorite in the history of the company is headlining an event. And this is your title fight. Sinead O'Connor, great lady, wonderful story. No business in that. Sinead Kavanaugh, thank you.
Nothing compares to you, Jay.
Nothing compares to that answer, and it derailed me all the way. Yeah, it happened, and we let it happen.
All right.
I am happy that happened, though, and I'm so happy that I want to ask you a question now.
Yes, please. Yes, please.
It is not a good question, but it is a question that we need to know the answer to, nonetheless, because we always seem to ask this question whenever there's a very, very rare women's featherweight fight in the UFC. Obviously, Chris Cyborg just fought in Bellator, so maybe that's your answer. Felicia Spencer, beats Leah Letson, who came back after 3 years away?
3.
And she's now on a 1-fight win streak in a division that doesn't have a champion that really cares about it and fights whenever. Is this the beginning of Felicia Spencer working her way back to another title shot? What the hell's the plan with this division?
I mean, there is no plan. Maybe this is working her way back up to another shot. I mean, does it matter? Like, it's one of those things where, like, the UFC, as I pointed out in the broadcast last week or the week before, whatever, the UFC didn't even, when they're running down the main card, they didn't even bother to say that this fight was on it, despite it being, third from the top. This fight didn't matter. It didn't matter. It was a drain upon our senses. Whatever, man. Like, who cares? But Letson can parlay this into a shot against Cyborg.
Or, I was going to say, maybe she can take the place of Sinead O'Connor in the cage.
Yeah, I mean, seriously, this is what it feels like the featherweight division is for the women in the UFC. And I put division in air quotes. You have a chance to audition for Bellator.
Kat Zingano might be making some money that way.
Yeah, I mean, it makes perfect sense. The UFC doesn't even bother to have more than like 4 featherweights on the roster at a time, and half of them fight at 135 also. Like, it really doesn't matter. I
mean, Dana, on the post-fight interview, UFC president Dana White said, it depends on what Amanda Nunes wants to do. Yeah. If she wants to defend her title at 145, she can. If not, whatever.
The sole purpose of the division is to make Nunes look good. Like, it's to put 2 belts on her shoulders and say, hey, our double champ is fighting again, which is fine. You just know what you're getting yourself into. But for someone like an Aspen Ladd, someone who clearly can't make 135 with consistency, this makes sense to try to stack your chips in the featherweight deck, because even though she just lost, she can just win one at featherweight, and she could beat Felicia Spencer, and the next thing you know, she's the next in line. So, and you're fighting the same person. So, why put your body through the extra torture?
I think you're right. If Leah Letson had won that fight, she might have gotten a shot.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Like, why not? Like, who else would have gotten it?
Norma Dumont.
Yeah, like Nunes, and for Nunes to just sit there, chilling with the wife and kid, and just be like, yeah, I'll get up off the couch and earn me another paycheck. Okay.
But at 135, the division, they have a lot more contenders. She's fighting Juliana Pena next. Juliana Pena, 1-fight win streak. Last loss was in 2020, where I believe she got submitted by Jermaine Durandamy.
Yeah, that says a lot. This is the problem with having a dominant champion in a lot of ways. Like, maybe this problem would exist if Nunes wasn't such a dominant champion. It would exist anyway, that there just aren't many compelling fights on deck. But having such a dominant force at the top really exaggerates the problem.
And then Hulk Holmes, the number 2, knocking off and kicking everybody else out.
Yeah. And we don't really need to see her with another title shot at 135 or 145 at this point.
She's gonna get it.
She's gonna get it. We know. All right, fellas. So let's go ahead and break out the seasoning salt, the paprika, the butter for the pan, and whatever else appeals to your taste buds. I'm gonna ask that age-old question: how's taste my crow? Jay, you're up first. How's taste my crow?
I think on the pen today, I'm going to squeeze out some acai berries on this thing, get some drippings on there, go down with some Brazilian flair, because I had Ben Rothwell easily walking through Marcos Rogério de Lima. And not just because of the fact that if Marcos Rogério de Lima falls on his back, the round and the fight may be over, or the fact that he has, I think, all of his losses in the UFC are by submission, and one of the weirdest, awkwardest, trickiest submission guys in the division may be Ben Rothwell, or the fact that Ben Rothwell's chin has held up basically for a decade against some really tough guys. And, the last guy to crack it was Cain Velasquez back in 2009. But that was the terrifying Cain, ground upon murderous kind of rampage Cain. So this seemed like easy sledding for him. And the fact that Marcos Rogério de Lima, had their UFC record for the longest alternating wins and losses streak. I think he was at 11 in a row, and he was due for a loss. The stars aligned, and I thought, well, Ben Rothwell's going to walk through him 1, maybe 2 rounds, probably the first round. And then that thing happened, and Herb Dean stole the win from Ben Rothwell. I'm kidding, but he knocked Ben Rothwell's block off in a way that I was surprised, Mr. Falcons, and I'm eating some crow about.
All right, not a bad one there. Ben, how's Taste My Crow this week?
Even though she was like a 2-1 underdog, I thought Liana Jojua could beat Courtney Casey. She did not. I was screaming at my TV. I don't want to talk about this fight. I'm done.
Why did she not win the fight, Benjamin?
Because she didn't even try to take her down.
She did in the last 5 seconds of every round.
Like you can only like do that if you were winning the round up to that point, but she just got blistered for 4 minutes and 50 seconds every round, then try to take down unsuccessfully at the end of every round. She was fighting Courtney Casey. She was fighting a former strawweight who got bullied by Michelle Waterson. That turned Michelle Waterson into like the D1 wrestling hottie. And Jojua did not even try to bring this woman down. I was so angry. Liana Jojua enters the Scream at the TV team at the time she hopefully leaves the UFC. Get her out of the octagon. I don't ever want to see her again.
Well, at least we got to coin a new nickname for Michelle Waterson, the half Nelson Hottie. Let's go with that. Half Nelson Hottie. All right. My House Taste My Crow comes courtesy of Khaos Williams and Miguel Baeza. This was a fight that I think I said this going in, like my fight to watch over the week, last week, that this was going to be an extremely violent fight. This was going to be nuts. But I thought Baeza was going to be the one to be victorious in this because he's just the much more disciplined striker. And perhaps I'm biased because he's always featured on Kevin Gleason's Instagram page demonstrating these really cool boxing techniques. I'm like, oh, man, that's sweet. I want to try that on the bag. So perhaps I was biased by that. But Khaos Williams consistently gets into these ridiculous firefights where he takes a tremendous amount of punishment and just lands a kill shot at the right time. That's exactly what we saw against Baeza. I just didn't think that Khaos would be able to land that kill shot against someone who seems to be a lot more disciplined than him. But he, in fact, landed that kill shot, and Baeza almost died right before our eyes in that final round. Fantastic fight. And I don't know, man. I'm not going to say that Khaos Williams is exactly knocking on contendership at welterweight, but he is once again proven that he is someone we need to be paying attention to when he's at his best. All right, fellas, let's keep things pushing here because we have to transition into the greatest titled segment in all of media history. That is, I'm Not Surprised, Mr. Falcons, where we, I screwed that up.
Not as bad as my Sinead, though, baby.
Hey, the greatest title segment in media history deserves proper respect. So I'm Not Surprised, Mr. Falcons. This is where we share something that surprised us or ironically did not over the course of the past week. Ben, I'll begin with you. What's your I'm Not Surprised, Mr. Falcons this week?
Well, this is not ironically unsurprising. This is a complete surprise to me that I believe a little over 2 years after his last appearance, former WEC bantamweight champ Renan Barao is scheduled to come back and fight. We're talking about a man in Barao who left the UFC on a 5-fight losing streak, having lost 8 of his last 10, with looking increasingly listless, physically depleted, obvious trouble making the bantamweight limit. Tried a shot or two at featherweight, made weight, but didn't look any better in the cage. This man looked like roadkill. He looked like at age 32, the tread was already off the tires. I guess he's been training with the Pitbull brothers, and he is coming back to fight. It's worth mentioning that he was so busy in his career at such an early age, and he peaked at such an early age in WEC, that he's still only 34. I mean, think of the dudes that are like over 34 now and are still just kind of on the come up or are just peaking now, even in those lighter divisions. I mean, he's like a year and a half older than Davison Figueiredo or something, he's still only 34, but they have found him the most winnable fight I can imagine for his comeback fight. He is fighting for the I think it's Premier Fighting Championship featherweight title. PFC is a Massachusetts promotion. He's fighting Tyson Duckworth, he's -5. He's under 500 for his career. He's like 9-10-1 or something. He's on a 3-fight losing streak. He's fought 3 times in 2021, 0-3, all by finish, 3 different weight classes. He has fought at featherweight, lightweight, and welterweight this year. I know Jay's like meticulous stat keeping does not extend down to some of these lower level promotions, but that's got to be some kind of record.
That's something
like
all right.
that's some Shannon Rich shit right there. Where like I'm 0-3 this year in 3 different weight classes. I can't believe this is for a title. It's a guy on a 5-fight losing streak that hasn't fought in 2 years versus a 41-year-old man who's 0-3 this year in 3 different weight classes for a title. But I'm actually happy for it in that, hey, if Barao actually has anything left in the tank, if hanging out with the Pitbull brothers and maybe tagging along with them to fight ready is like making him more capable of being an energetic featherweight, at this stage in his career, I'm glad they're bringing him back with a winnable fight with, frankly, a softball. If the guy's got anything left, he was really, really exciting. And it's easy to lose sight of just how good he was during his mid-20s prime just because of how badly it all ended. But yeah, super surprised. Welcome back, Renan Barao, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, you buried the lead and you missed it completely. Marcus Davis is fighting on that card for the first time since 2014 against a guy with a record of 4-15. We're going to get the Irish hand grenade coming back, baby. What? Is
this like, is one of the cage sponsors a funeral home? What the fuck?
I have no idea. I just found this right this second. This is Walkout Network exclusive.
No. Wow.
Whoa.
Sponsored by Body Bags.
And wow. Dan Cormier is also fighting on the card. Dan the Hamburglar Cormier. Not to be confused with the UFC champion.
Okay.
The flyweight yes. Dan Cormier.
Yes.
All right. So I'm gonna get out of the order just a little bit here because I know I'm not surprised is
go right ahead.
Something. It's very something. It's something.
Very something.
So last week we talked about the aftermath of Usman and Colby and what was next for those guys. Leon Edwards and Jorge Masvidal playing a big part in that discussion. Well, that fight is now off. Masvidal pulled out due to an undisclosed injury the day or two after Colby got on the mic at the post-fight press conference saying, hey, he needs to pull out of that fight so me and him can coach against each other on Tough. That's looks to be what's going on now. Apparently, Leon Edwards once again screwed out of having an opponent. And of course, a lot of people on Twitter seem to blame him for that. Just wondering how the UFC is going to screw him out of a title shot yet again. Even the Khamzat Chimaev booking that has been very elusive now seems to be going toward Gilbert Burns. So, Leon Edwards, left at the altar without a bride once again. I'm not surprised, Mr. Falcons.
And people are going to say that Edwards didn't want the fight.
Yeah. People that promote him
yes.
are going to say that. So I'm amazed that this keeps going on. I just wonder who Leon Edwards pissed off in the past life for this to be the story of his career when this man is enjoying a ridiculous unbeaten streak in one of the toughest divisions in the sport. So, yep, I'm not surprised, Mr. Falcons. Jay, please share with us your I'm not surprised, Mr. Falcons moment.
Not all news can be good news. And although I really did want to talk about BKFC and the fact that all of their high-profile, expensive acquisitions have failed miserably, with Pearl Gonzalez losing over the weekend and then saying, I'm done with this. And everybody went, wait, what? And BKFC went, wait, what? I got to go something a little tougher. It's a news story that you can actually find on Sherdog.com right now. And it's coming out of Guam. And it's a news story and not a fight story, but it involves a fighter named Akmal Koziev, who is from Guam by way of Samarkand, Uzbekistan. And he was part of the Steel Athletics team over in Guam until he was kicked out recently for some issues. He is a unabashed anti-COVID vacciner and a take your mask off, and you can find all of his Instagram posts that are very angry about that. Well, he apparently, this is according to the reports here, so news comes out since then. This is the news as we have it. Was having dinner with a Dr. Moran Rabati, who is a COVID doctor, and they were having a conversation in Guam, and the conversation turned sour. They began to start arguing, and I guess they left the residence, and I guess the fighter, the former fighter, was mad at his friend, the doctor friend, and I don't trust you, and whatever the argument went on. Well, according to a witness, he started choking the doctor, the fighter, and a witness tried to get in there, and he got hit several times. Well, Rabati went to the kitchen to grab the bone of the meal that they had eaten, the remaining bone, and stabbed the doctor in the neck repeatedly. This is all, again, according to record and witness and police statements, and a confession by the fighter. So there's still allegations at this point. And then after he stabbed the doctor in the neck, he then chased the doctor who was trying to escape with stab wounds in his neck from a bone with a knife that he grabbed somewhere and stabbed the doctor to death. This is they were friends. They trained together, and I believe at the time Jojua was a trainer. So this was a friendship that turned very, very dark and very, very ugly. People who had trained with him and knew him, like J.J. Ambrose, who was a guy who was in Bellator for a while, who trains out of Steel Athletics. I think he actually owns Steel Athletics. Was the one who kicked him out of the gym to say, yeah, this guy's really gone off the deep end. You know, you can see from his Instagram posts, he's, cocking his gun, and you're not going to get me vaccinated or unvaccinated. It doesn't matter. And all of the COVID conspiracy theories that he leads out, and he proceeded to allegedly kill a COVID doctor. So rest in peace, Dr. Rabati, and this sport, man. Some people are hurt people, I guess.
God, so many stupid people. You know what, and Jay, like, that story spared the likes of Jason House, Julian Marquez, and John Jones for stepping up to the altar to get theirs this week. So, yeah. I mean, the Jason House story and Julian Marquez's reaction to it. I mean, just absolutely basement, just bottom level behavior, and that somehow topped it. So ridiculous. All right, fellas. So from one basement level topic to another, you guys want to talk about that mixed rules Triller card, MMA and boxing, November 27th?
No.
Fine. I'll give you the lineup. Boxing versus MMA. Modified rules where you can punch. I don't know the size of the gloves yet, but it sounds like it might be like MMA gloves, maybe a little more padding. So like 6-ounce MMA gloves.
Like the sparring MMA gloves?
Yeah, I think that's what it sounds like. Modified rounds, like there's like a 9-round fight, and there's some 7-round fights. This is I believe they're 2-minute rounds, if I'm not mistaken. You can punch, you can clinch and punch, you can punch and spinning back fist, you can punch and throw hammer fists. No kicks, no knees, no elbows, no ground fighting, no trips, no throws, no whatever. But you can stand on your opponent's foot and hold them still and punch them. So this is happening in Triller. It's a pay-per-view that I'm not purchasing, which has attracted MMA fighters. This is an MMA fighter against boxer card. MMA fighters that are on the card: Frank Mir, Matt Mitrione, Mike Perry, Derek Campos, and Albert Tumanov are the names you'd recognize. Well, the opponent, I guess, that is most noteworthy, besides Mike Perry fighting Saki Obika, a former boxing champion, is that Frank Mir is fighting Kubrat Pulev, who, as we know, just fought Anthony Joshua for the title.
Oh my God.
Frank Mir is fighting Pulev in this what the hell is going on event.
Oh my God.
So, yeah, that's happening.
So Kubrat Pulev in Shudo gloves versus Frank Mir's ability to stand on his foot.
That's it.
I like Mir, but this is bad.
It is it is a 9-round headlining fight.
Wasn't Mir trying to fight
it's
Tarver
a 1
or something
round
also?
fight, dude.
Mir was trying to fight a bunch of different people.
Yeah, it's like, is Mir like on a suicide mission or something? Because that is bonkers. And what a weird hybrid set of rules. Like
it's
so
dirty boxing.
This is dirty boxing. Like you would be
plus
better
spinning
off
back fists.
Yeah, you'd be better off getting like Muay Thai fighters than MMA fighters for something like this because of the clinch game and the striking involved and it's no grappling aside from the clinch, right? Excuse me.
Yep.
So
clinch fighting, dirty boxing.
Yeah, this is
obviously it doesn't matter anywhere. Like this isn't going on BoxRec. This isn't going on Sherdog Fight Finder. This is utterly meaningless slap fights. Yeah. Except for they're not going to be slap fights when Frank Mir is fighting Kubrat Pulev. Oh my god,
man! Wow.
I like Frank Mir, but I'm not going to be able to like him anymore if he fights Kubrat Pulev and isn't around afterwards.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
And this is the kind of thing that Fight Circus would do for one fight between barely trained people. They wouldn't try to build a whole card around it.
Like, I'm going to feel so disgusted when I input my credit card information. I'm going to feel so dirty.
It's happening in Arlington, and I think that's a long way away from Houston. I don't know how
it's
Dallas area.
Oh, okay. Duh, I don't know why. Okay. Well, I could probably make a phone call if you want to cover it live, Mr. Duffy.
See if Mr. Wells will be in attendance as well. I have to.
I mean, you guys would be watching like this, though.
Like I'm telling you, I'm already ashamed of myself as I try to make sure that I activate my card. Remember what my PIN number is. Like this is whatever, man. Like whatever. Triller gonna trill.
I mean, Matt Metrone's fighting. I don't know if you know him, Alexander Flores, who is a 18-3 guy who's a lot of knockouts, a lot of things to do against a 44-year-old that has taken a lot of knockout losses recently.
Yeah. This is one of those things where this sort of card can work if you match it appropriately. It can be competitive if you match it appropriately. They did not go for this. They went for someone needs to die every fight. That's what it sounds like. And Triller has a thing against MMA for the pairings that they put forth but here's the thing, if the pay scale in MMA stays what it's at, this is what's going to happen to guys like Frank Mir, like legends who really shouldn't be doing anything like this.
And
like,
legends like Mike Perry, of course.
Yeah, so is Mike Perry on loan from BKFC now?
I think so.
For this?
I think so.
I mean, Mike Perry is kind of the exception. Like Mike Perry would been doing this sort of stuff anyway. So he'd be
doing this stuff in like the backyard. Though.
Yeah, this would be he'd be doing this outside of 7-Eleven right now. I would not be surprised if by the end of this of us recording, we'll get an alert on Twitter that he was doing this outside of 7-Eleven in Orlando.
And had to pull out of the fight because he got knocked out and hit his head in the pavement.
Yeah. Or he's wearing an orange jumpsuit.
Or he's been arrested for assault. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, fellas. Well, we do have the final UFC card in a 10-week stretch coming up. The main event is featuring Ketlen Vieira and Miesha Tate in her second fight post her retirement. Should this be a headliner?
Our silence speaks volumes, right, Duffy?
Chiesa versus Brady is such a better fight.
Yeah.
I mean, Giannis versus Grant is the best fight on the card, but obviously they're both a little fresh in the division to be headlining. But, I mean, I guess it's what they got. I don't know.
I'm surprised. This is going to sound really, really sad, so I apologize to our listeners. I am surprised this fight card actually stayed together as much as it has. Because of the U.S. COVID restrictions to get in the country, you have to be vaccinated. Not a political stance or anything, just that's the requirement. And despite that, there's still a lot of international fighters that are making their way on the card, including Ketlen Vieira. But Chiesa Brady just seems like maybe in terms of raw rankings, it's possible that 7 and 8, which is Vieira 7, Tate's 8. And then in terms of welterweight, Chiesa's 6 and Brady's 14. So 7 versus 8 versus compared to 6 versus 14. Maybe they saw that. But do we need 5 rounds of Vieira Tate? I don't know.
I mean, it makes sense in the sense that this,
and she's a former champ.
Yeah, Miesha Tate, former champ, one of the bigger names.
Yeah, sure.
In the sport. And then, like it or not, this has title implications.
And it has much more immediate title implications than Chiesa Brady, just because they're in a division where you got to win 8 fights in a row to even get into the discussion.
Exactly. We just had a conversation about how Amanda Nunes is just kind of chilling and just waiting for someone to step up and for her to thrash. Miesha Tate's already been thrashed by Nunes. Ketlen Vieira could be next in line for that as well. So it's like the ability to stand out enough for a title shot in bantamweight or quote unquote featherweight division. It's the bar is so low right now. This could be, and not to dismiss the talents of either one of these ladies, but it's just not that much competition for the title spot against Nunes at this point. So this could very well be a contendership fight.
Ketlen Vieira, if she wins this fight, she'll be on a 1-fight win streak, which is now what it takes to get a title shot. Ask Juliana Pena.
Yeah,
I don't know, guys. You haven't talked about a fight that I really think merits some awkward mention. It's that Hani Yahya is fighting Mr. Perfect Kung No Kong, who is coming back after 2 years of military service or an injury. I know it was something that he was out for a while. But the UFC is matching Hani Yahya against a guy that's not going to try and smash his face off. Like, Kung No Kong is a grappler too. So this is going to, I think this could be a lot of fun on the ground. As long as Yahya doesn't gas himself out like he did against like Joe Soto. I think that Hani Yahya is going to, I think he's going to win this fight. And then we're going to talk about him in the title play. I'm just kidding. We're not going to do
that. Ben, so you were looking forward to Yanez and Grant. Any other fight on here you want to highlight briefly before we get up out of here?
I mean, Loma Lupumi versus Lupita Godinez will be like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I don't know what the ceiling of either of those women is in that division, especially considering they both look like atom weights. But no, Yanez versus Grant is the fight where 3 years from now, when they're both in the title picture, we'll be like, man, that was an important fight way back when. No. We'll be looking back at it like Usman versus Edwards' first fight or something like that,
Nice.
Or Conor versus Holloway.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Nice. Well, I'm going to go ahead and highlight Terrence McKinney versus Faraz Ziam. I mean, how do you not get excited about seeing McKinney after what his UFC debut looked like, and like seriously emerging to be one of the better personalities in the sport? So I'm anxious to see what that looks like. And record wise, these guys are very evenly matched. Should be a fun firefight. I'm looking forward to it. So, but yeah, that's kind of it for this card. Not anything.
Joanne Calderwood in her first fight with a new name.
That's right. Yeah, like Joanne Wood. Yeah. She should have just gone with the double Wood. Calderwood Wood.
Joanne Calderwood. Joanne Doublewood. I don't know.
Yeah. Or I think was it Scott? It might have been Scott Fontana who we've had on the show before. I think he said like it should have been Joanne Calder with an X through it, then Wood.
Strike through.
Yeah, strike through Wood. That would have been dope. Yeah, so that will do it for this version of episode edition, whatever of Unleashed. Like, man, I'm fumbling all over my words, but it's all good. Remember to like, subscribe, share, tell a friend to tell a friend, tell that friend to tell 10 more friends. Check out Ben and Jay for their coverage of UFC Vegas 43, I think it is. Is that the hashtag we're using? Sure. Whatever. Yeah, close enough.
Vegas 43.
Yeah. All right. So go ahead, follow their work on SureDog.com. They'll have play-by-plays and post-fight recaps, all that fun stuff. Yeah, and Ben, I'm sure you're doing your post-fight show as well. So Go ahead, check that out. You can find my work on MMA On Point, although I'm not doing anything right now because I'm about to move. I got a lot of stuff going on in the house. So yeah, do that. Stay beautiful, stay positive, stay sexy. I'll see you when I see you. Peace.